What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you guys how to change a rear wheel bearing in a bunch of different older Honda models. So before we get started with this video, this is the style of bearing that we're going to be changing out in this video. Honda used this style of rear wheel bearing for like almost 30 years. I looked back in the mid 80s and they were using a bearing similar to this on Civics and Accords and things like that, and they carried that all the way up through 2014. The last vehicle that I saw that used this style of bearing was a 2014 Fit and 2014 Insight. So there's a bunch of different Honda models that this is going to cover. You know, obviously all the mid 90s Civics, all the early 2000s Civics, the Integras, the Accords, like I said. What this won't cover is any like four-wheel drive stuff. So obviously if you have like a CRV or a Ridgeline or a Pilot or anything like that, obviously because it's four-wheel drive, it's going to take a different style of bearing than this. For those of you that have this style of bearing, I'm going to show you guys how to get one of these changed out. Super quick, super easy. If you guys can do a set of brakes, you can change one of these bearings out, no problems. First thing we got to do is remove the hubcap and the wheel. Okay, now that the wheel's off, next thing you want to do is remove the drum. Now, you may have problems with the drum. There's two shoes inside. You guys will see that if they're spread out too far, it won't let the drum come off, but generally, for the most part, they come off pretty easy on these little Hondas. All right, so I got to cut in here for a second. Like I told you in the beginning of the video, there's a bunch of different Honda models that, you know, that this bearing covers. So with that in mind, obviously, as you guys see, I'm dealing with the drum on the rear. But if you're dealing with a disc, you have to take the caliper off, you got to take the rotor off, and then you can remove the bearing that way. Obviously, because I have a drum, once I get the drum off the car, you can go ahead and just remove the bearing. So yeah, there's your drum. You're going to set that off to the side. While I'm in here, obviously check out your brakes, make sure your brakes are in good shape. You know, make sure none of your springs are missing or bent or anything like that. I'm going to clean everything up while I'm in here with some brake clean. Next thing you want to do is you want to remove the dust cap for the wheel bearing itself. So the way I'm going to do this is I have a little chisel that you're going to set right here on the lip for the dust cap, and you're going to go around and just keep smacking it with a hammer and turning the hub and smack it some more, and it'll kind of work its way out of there. If you guys don't have a chisel, absolutely you can use a screwdriver that you're willing to beat on a little bit. So there's your dust cap, set that off to the side. So once you have the dust cap off, the last thing you have to remove is going to be this nut. Now the nut on this little Fit, 32 millimeter, pretty standard size for an axle nut socket. I'm going to zip it off here with the impact. You guys can use a breaker bar or whatever you have at your disposal to get this thing off of here, but So now your bearing slide right off the end of the axle. So that's it. The ABS tone ring is out here on the outside, so naturally you kind of want to be careful with the new one. Try not to drop it on that edge, otherwise you'll break the magnet and the bearing's going to be no good. Well, your ABS won't work anyway. Now going back together, obviously grab your new bearing. You're going to slide that onto the spindle. Get a new nut, thread on your nut. So for those of you that aren't aware, this nut is what sets the preload on the bearing. And basically why that matters is if the nut is too tight, the bearing is going to fail prematurely. And if the nut is too loose, the bearing is going to fail prematurely. So you obviously have to get that to a certain specification. I'll list it down at the bottom for you guys. But yeah, that torque spec on that nut's kind of critical if you want the bearing to last. So once you get the nut on here, you want to dimple it at the slot. That just keeps the nut from obviously backing off. So once you got your nut secure, you can go ahead and put your rotor on. Last thing you got to do is put your dust cap back on. Just use a punch. So now just throw the wheel back on and you're done. All right, so that's how you change one of these older style Honda rear wheel bearings. I'll have links in the description to the parts, the tools, all that stuff. As always, guys, if you guys like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, go down and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.